Zero.
Bueno,
Okay.
hola a todos, buenas noches. There you go. I will say hi
Oh,
to
there we go.
the people that is already online.
Okay.
I think more people will come
So
soon.
you just go to the icon of the. I'm
There
watching
you
it from
go.
where?
There you go. You have the delay. Thanks. So it's great for us to be here with you guys. I thank you very much you for taking the time and sitting here with us to talk about sharks like the nerds we are. And I will welcome you guys in Spanish for the for the audience. And Ana.
Hola a todos, bienvenidos. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí. Eh, Como tenemos invitados de habla inglesa y tenemos invitados de habla hispana, bueno, entonces vamos a hacer una traducción. Francisco va a hablar en inglés y yo voy a hablar en español.
Okay, and the what we're doing here, I sent you an email and tell you guys that we will be talking about 4 main topics, and I think we want to do this friendly and just talk, and share some of your experience. And you all guys are here for a reason, and I would like to start talking, for example, about the challenges of conservation that sharks and chondrichthyans are facing in these years, in the last decades. It's a very broad thing. And I would like to start with Lisa and Eduardo, and if Eduardo can speak in this moment. And I don't know, I'm talking about fishing, habitat loss and climate change, for example. How do you think this is, how these issues have become a problem and a challenge for conservation of this group of fishes? Lisa.
¿Estás grabando?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, Pancho. I appreciate that. It's clear that climate change is affecting the shark distributions, and we showed that recently in a paper with tiger sharks that they're moving further north in the North Atlantic area off the US. And I'm sure some other species are doing the same thing. The problem that comes with things like that is that, for example, we just got off our biannual survey, and the fish are probably moving further north, but our timing of our survey and amount of sea days, you don't get to cover as far as you'd like to. So you're potentially underestimating how many fish are out there if they've moved north faster than the boat. Additionally, for example, there's a closed area off North Carolina for dusky sharks. And if the sharks are moving out of the management areas, then you have to figure out how to change that, either change the management areas or use another method of conservation. But without being able to survey those areas, you don't know how to change them. So it becomes kind of a mix of finding the fish, figuring out where they are, and then changing the management. So.
Voy a decir un poco en español rápido. Un tema muy importante que saca Lisa acá es que el cambio climático ha hecho cambios en la distribución. Y una cosa que no se ha discutido mucho, no se ha hablado, es que los cambios en la distribución afectan especies que, por ejemplo, ya tienen designadas áreas de protección. Entonces, cuando hay un área protegida en una zona y estos tiburones cambian de lugar, o sea, con todo lo que cuesta hacer un área protegida, ahora más encima los tiburones se mueven a otros lugares. Entonces, eso es un problema súper complejo y hay que tratar de abordarlo. That's a really interesting point that nobody has dealt with it. I mean, if sharks are moving out of conservation areas, that's really bad. Have you any guys see something
the
like
research
that in
has
other
to,
places?
the research on where they're going or if they're going has to catch up, and then you have to figure out what to do about it, and it's a hard problem because it's more than one thing. You can't just do the research, you have to tie it to the management. And then the other problem with climate change, we've been doing this survey since 1996, and we've noticed a definite difference. In 96, we had about 3 weather days. This past trip, we had 15. So your sampling definitely goes down. We were only able to sample about 40 plus stations on this trip, and we have 85. So that causes a problem. And of course, the increase in bad weather is due to climate change. So it all ties in together.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
What do I think? What do I think? Well, I think some of these, the problem with some of these management areas with highly migratory species like dusky sharks, I think are more problematic because, and at least you can probably answer this better than I can, but because they tend to move around and depending on where they are in terms of their the stage of life, they could be in different locations. And so as those areas move, I don't think it's, again, I'm not sure, you probably have a better idea in the North Atlantic versus everywhere else, but like Duskies, like where the adult males are, where the adult females are at the time of year and everything, and the juveniles could be widely different than the management area, it seems to me.
Yeah, I get what you're getting at. The closed area off North Carolina is primarily for small immature Duskies. And there's an area off North Carolina that has just a lot of nursery ground for a lot of different species. So it ends up encompassing all those species, but they're definitely nursery, juvenile, that kind of thing. They're not the larger fish because, as you say, they disperse. They could be anywhere. And we have, combined with other people and put sat tags on some of these larger fish, but that's all data that takes a really long time, as you all know, to get the appropriate fish and then the data back and then analyzing the data. So the best you can do is protect the babies, try to get them to maturity age.
Right.
So
and probably the North Atlantic are probably better studied than anywhere else, I would think. Just about.
Yeah, they're pretty well studied there. I mean, it's nowhere near finished being studied, but there's a lot of, we have the Coast Span project, which is a coastwide nursery ground project where they go sample and find out where all the sandbars and duskies and everything are in what nursery grounds are important. And that goes all the way from, I think Delaware. No, I think they might even have some in New Jersey, but that area all the way into the Gulf of Mexico. So, they are pretty heavily studied.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Bueno, para los que nos están escuchando, la pregunta para nuestros panelistas es: ¿qué desafíos de conservación se enfrentan hoy en día las poblaciones de condrictios, principalmente en la pesca, en la pérdida de hábitat y sobre todo en el cambio climático? Natalie, Eduardo, cualquiera que quiera darnos su punto de vista desde el trabajo que están haciendo ustedes acerca de esto.
Hola a todos, buenas noches, muchas gracias por la invitación. Y es un gusto estar con todos ustedes. Pues desde el punto de vista en el que nosotros hemos trabajado de mi parte, pues hemos visto cómo la pesca, también muchas actividades antropogénicas, como la pesca, como la construcción en las líneas de costa, como hoteles y ese tipo de sitios han ido degradando pues las áreas donde vivían los organismos, afectando generalmente y muchas veces lo que son áreas de crianza. Entonces los animales, algunos se van alejando de la costa, van a otras profundidades. Tenemos un trabajo en el que participé, por ejemplo, en el caso de los pristis, del pristis petinatas aquí en México, que se creía extinto. Es una especie que no se veía hace muchísimos años acá en México, pero se hizo un estudio donde estuvo pues trabajando y pudimos encontrar la presencia de un pristis en una zona de acá de Veracruz, acá en México. Y este organismo ha sido pues desplazado por la pesca, las artes de pesca, por la misma fisionomía, la anatomía de este pez facilitaba que se capturaba fácilmente, se enredaba en redes. Y también lo utilizaban mucho pues para la alimentación y pues como trofeo mucha gente el rostro no lo ubica por esto, ¿no? Y lo que es la contaminación, el cambio climático, pues ha hecho que también los organismos ya hemos hecho estudios en el que se ha visto que tanto tiburones, especialmente más en tiburones, como la disminución de tallas de crecimiento ha disminuido Y también la talla de primera madurez sexual ya es más pequeña, ¿no? Incluso el peso. Entonces son cosas que se han ido afectando y que los organismos, pues ha tocado pues ver como un tipo de estrategia para poder intentar amortiguar esta problemática, ¿no? De este cambio climático y actividades antropogénicas como estas.
Well, Natalie is saying, I'll try to translate a little bit, but she's been working with Christie's, by the way, and you know how complicated that is. You know all the changes in distribution, all this. What we talk about the climate change and stuff is been really bad for this group, which is particularly vulnerable to everything, right? Fisheries, climate change, you know, water, everything, and it's terrible. And she also has seen something that we probably want to talk about. This the second topic. Changes in sizes, you know, and size of maturity and all those changes that you can see after long periods of high fishing pressure. I would say if you well, Dave, you used to be a biologist before you sold your soul to taxonomy, right? And
Yes.
you were working
See.
on this, and Lisa, of course, has been working in size and age and all of that for years. And it's been Natalie just say something that is really important about this. So what changes have you guys seen? Even you, Dave, when you're looking for those charts, right? And you are really aware of natural history collections, you know, and you can see how in history you can see some changes in the species in some parameters like total length, you know, like the maximum size reported. And so how do you guys, and Dave, how have you seen that these sizes have changed, or what other changes have you seen in your trips all over the world and in different species that you have been following?
Well, I hear somebody else talking in. I hear somebody else
Eduardo,
talking.
necesitas silenciarte.
Well, I can do it.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, no. Well, I think one of the things that I before I sold my soul and went to taxonomy, when I was actually a biologist, ecologist, as Pancho referred to. One of the things I think with a lot of the sharks and rays and chondrichthyans in general is that everybody looks at like one population, like say they'll do a study on, I'll use dusky sharks, like where Lisa's done the work, and they'll apply that everywhere in the world. And yet I think you need to look at these different species, you know, duskies are larger ones, so people might look at them as different stocks, perhaps. But like you get into like skates, for example, like we found on the west coast of North America here, like if you go from say the Bering Sea, looking at once at a skate species, then you look at it down off California, you'll find different life history parameters. And so you really need to manage each of those as separate stocks. And almost nowhere in the world does even in North America, do they look at them as different stocks. And again, Megan Whitten, who just finished her PhD, but she did her master's with me, and she looked at this, what's called a rough-tail skate in the Bering Sea, and found to be a much slower growing population than down off the California coast, where we looked at the same species, where it tended to be a faster growing. And so you can't, if you use the parameters, say, for the Bering Sea off California, you're going to mess it up, or vice versa if you use California off for the Bering Sea. And so I think that's a huge problem that's overlooked, that people tend to think that if they just look at one population, one place in the world, that it's applicable everywhere. You also have to look at like the different stages of the population, like Lisa brought up about, is it an adult male, adult female? Where do they reside? What's their habitat? The juveniles, you know, in cases of egg cases or newborns, where are they? And again, that's a lot more effort than people put into it. They'll want to put in, they'll just take a one size fits all. And I think those are huge in terms of if you want to understand what's going on in the population and in the distribution. And then the distribution part is you have to have people that actually know how to identify the species. You know, because a lot of the people I know on the west coast here in North America, it's all about salmon. and they'll tell you all about salmon, but boy, you get into like other ground fish, they know a little bit about that, but once you get into like skates or the sharks, they have no idea what they're doing. So that's where I think a lot of it really starts at the bottom, the ground floor, where you've got to understand the species you have and know something about it for that particular stock that you're dealing with if you're going to really try to start to get to the management of them.
The other thing, following up on that, Dave, and making it even more specific, is everybody expects that, you've got this growth curve, you've got a 6-foot shark, it's 7 years old, period. They don't see individual variability. And we had on this last cruise, we had 4 female sandbar sharks, the exact same size, and they were in 4 different reproductive states. There's plasticity in reproduction. We really don't know how to age sharks. And just because one shark goes to North Carolina in the summer doesn't mean all sharks of that species and size are going to North Carolina in the summer. And we just want to pigeonhole these guys so bad that we miss. It's not seeing the forest for the trees kind of thing. We're missing a lot of information.
Right. And the other thing too is that a lot of now Lisa's different because she works in chondrichthyans, but a lot of the fisheries people manage sharks and rays like bony fishes,
Right.
and that's completely wrong. So like there's how they'll manage like a rockfish or a salmon, and that's how they'll try to manage a shark. And it's completely different. They got to look. It's more they have to follow mammalian type of reproductive pattern, not a bony fish. And that's where I think a lot of these management plans fall apart. Again, unless you have somebody like Lisa who works on chondrichthyans and understands that, they're not going to, a bony fish person is going to completely miss a lot of the life history parameters and is going to screw up potential management plans for species.
And I think one of the reasons for that is because, for some countries, like how much the chondrichthyans fisheries represents in terms of, let's say, revenue, and so how much, a government or a fisheries department is going to invest in getting into like the very gritty, details of like life history, reproductions, and like I don't see that happening. And if it's not happening for sharks or for certain species of sharks, it is, but yeah, for most of sharks, no. I mean, for rays, it's going to be less. And so, yeah, I totally agree that the easy way to approach is like a bony fish, but it's completely off of the reality of how to manage these populations.
And you're totally right. It's not just that there's not as many, it's just that nobody really wants to put the effort in. Like tuna is very high money fish, so they put all the money in tuna, or salmon, as Dave was talking about. So until there's a reason monetarily, they don't really want to do it, even though they're obviously splashed all over the TV and everything else more than a salmon.
That's a huge point. I mean, if you have issues in identifying species, and we are trying them to go to a different level to not only identify the species but also stocks, which is even worse. And for species identification and for stock identification, you have different tools now. So now, well, Jimena works in genetics. I don't know if she has experience if you have to work already with some stock definitions and stock delimitations. No sé si Salvador, you have to work with that too. You work in management, right? In the high levels of the government, and also Manuel. So if you guys, what are you doing to make this, to set up the boundaries of stocks and how you treat these things as different population? I mean, it's really hard to do in those areas.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, thank you, Pancho. Thank you, Anna, for the invitation, and I'm glad to be here in front of the great panelists and share my opinion of all these issues about sharks. For my experience, the big problem of to do a good management combine the climate change is still, it's very hard to control the special area when we found a special area for nurturing or for a mating area, and change the situation of the temperature of the sea and move to another place. And we did the management rules to close the area for a special area, and then when this happened, this is it's like frustration when you try to do a management, but this situation give you more problems to and the user, like the fishermen's, protest to us why we close the area, why we, like when I work in the government, we do this kind of management. But wow, it's a big challenge to us now when I work with ATTC. We try to put this on the table. This year we hiring a specialist of climate change to work with this kind of issues in our institution. Yeah, it's very hard to work. Yeah, complicated.
Not everything is that bad, you know. Andrew, you have the experience in here, maybe. So what we can do to make this better, and there's a bunch of things going on in this moment with media and conscientization, this awareness thing that we're talking about today, education, media, and also even the tourism. I mean, ecotourism. All of that is contributing at some point. In some other situations, the thing is not even getting better. With ecotourism, which should be something really good, it became something really bad in some places. But you guys as media people, how do you see it? And from your side of the table, right? So you're talking and you are educating and you're talking to everyone in these days.
I find for my experience, I find a lot of the people that we connect with through the podcast, like through Beyond Jaws or through How to Protect the Ocean, it's a lot of people just don't know about the problems. They don't know about the challenges that scientists face. They know what they see in the media that they see, you know, through, say, for chondrichthyans, like through Shark Week or Shark Fest, and they see the same shows pop up over and over again, more about shark attacks and more about how it affect them. But we don't see a lot of news and media around the challenges of studying sharks, the fact that we don't know a lot about many of the sharks that are out there and we're still discovering species. So that's where the focus, I feel, needs to really needs to be highlighted, is talking to people who are studying these types of challenges and trying to answer questions on just from the basic taxonomy to figuring out where these distributions are, how these distributions are changing, and how that changes the conservation efforts for these species.
Manuel. Ana.
Hola.
Hola, Manuel, ¿cómo estás? Nuestros panelistas han estado hablando acerca de cómo se están evaluando las poblaciones desde los peces óseos, que deberían de evaluarse de diferente manera porque no todos los condrictios son iguales, ¿no? Tiburones, rayas, quimeras, desde nuestra experiencia, pues sabemos que se necesitan evaluar incluso desde diferentes tallas, de diferentes sexos, etcétera. ¿Qué nos puedes comentar desde tu experiencia? Porque sabemos que también trabajas con diferentes pesquerías y que lo has hecho a lo largo de muchos años. ¿Cómo se puede evaluar la pérdida de las especies, sobre todo de los condrictios? Porque es una pregunta que nos hacemos mucho.
Hola, pues la experiencia pues acá en el área de Guatemala pues ha sido un poco complicada desde la toma de la información y la veracidad de esa información, ¿verdad? Con los años hemos podido generar algunos vínculos de confianza, sobre todo con los grupos de pescadores interesados en las actividades de pesca, para que puedan proporcionar información fidedigna de los desembarques principalmente y que nos permita acceder al registro de la información, tanto en el Pacífico como en el Caribe. Eh, ¿Qué deberíamos hacer? Bueno, por el tipo de recurso, primero que este trabajo debe ser regional, no solo local a nivel de pequeñas plataformas como el caso de Guatemala, ¿verdad? Tienen que ser trabajos conjuntos, así como experiencias que se han hecho con los PESCA, que es un organismo regional, en el cual se hicieron evaluaciones de colecta de información de chondrichthys a nivel de Centroamérica. Yo creo que este tipo de experiencias, pues, hay que sumar, ¿verdad? Trabajos en conjunto con México, ¿verdad? Ya que son varias poblaciones que compartimos y esto creo que sería el paso a seguir, ¿verdad? Estamos trabajar no solo a nivel nacional, sino a nivel regional con países, ¿verdad? Colombia, México, para el caso de Centroamérica, que pueda generar información más adecuada y confiable, ¿verdad? Para la evaluación de chondrichthys.
Claro, desde las políticas que tiene cada estado, porque cada estado, cada país, cada región tiene políticas diferentes para el manejo de sus pesquerías y a mí me parece algo muy importante las colecciones. Sí, claro.
Yeah, so they were talking about, Manuel was saying that some of the issues they're facing in Guatemala are the how to take reliable data from fishermen sometimes. So this has to do with education and also what we were just talking with Andrew and all of you guys. If you don't have the trust of fishermen, then you won't have good data, and that's something that you have to work for years. And this is another issue. I mean, if you need years to get their confidence, their trust, and have reliable data, and you work in a department that is not as stable as you need to, because you will need 10 years to get actually to be there, and you can talk to any fisherman, like friends, but that takes years, and sometimes you're not staying for those amounts of years in your job, so you're moved to some other departments. So that's a problem. And the other thing is, what about the scope, right? So if you have this local scope for management, if you look at national things, and especially when you live in small countries like in Central America, that you have a bunch of different countries in there, if you need to change for a regional scope in this case, because you have to make joint management in everything. Even we in South America, I mean, Chile has like a lot of kilometers of coast, but we still have some species that we share with Peru and Colombia, and we need to manage them together. Also in the Magellanic province, I mean, with Argentina and the Falklands, is something that you actually need to do, and it's so hard. Sometimes it's so hard to get things within the country that getting it from an international point of view, like to get together with other countries and get agreements to do it is really hard. Yeah, that's a problem. Salvador wants to say something.
Yes, Pancho, but in this case, I will give you more work. I will start to talk in Spanish. Em, es algo importante lo que dijo Manuel con el trabajo en conjunto de nivel regional. Eh, Uno de los puntos que incluiría yo, además de lo que dijo Manuel para la pregunta que hizo Ana, tal vez no es que, a veces siento que no es que exista una pérdida de especie, sino como una falta de buena identificación de las especies. A nivel regional, me ha tocado encontrar en los sistemas de estadísticos de cada uno de los países de Centroamérica el especies que solo están presentes en las costas, en barcos de high sea, en barcos de palangreros muy grandes. Y es porque en el país que se encontró, donde se registró la descarga, pusieron el nombre común que ellos ocupan para esa especie. Y el país B, al segundo país donde pertenece la bandera, lo tradujeron utilizando Google Translate y pusieron el nombre de otra especie. Entonces tenías una estadística de tiburones costeros tan alta en un barco oceánico. Entonces, ves eso que no cuadra en las estadísticas y no que no exista o se pierda especies, sino que hay mala información. Y esto es por el gran trabajo que hace Dave y otros taxónomos en mejorar y en dar esas herramientas para poder identificar de buena forma las especies son las que creo yo que es necesario invertir y hacer entender a las autoridades que es necesario tener una buena, un buen personal técnico, científico en sus áreas para poder reportar bien, para darse cuenta de lo que están haciendo, porque en el caso que les menciono, los técnicos simplemente tradujeron del español al inglés algo que pasó y lo registraron de esa forma.
I will try to
Okay.
briefly translate that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Go ahead,
but,
Pancho.
So he's
El abstract.
saying that sometimes about the species lost, we move that to that side, but sometimes it's not even that the species are actually lost. The thing is that the records are made sometimes in the field with common names, and that's also something that it gives me a headache, already. Common names are a mess everywhere in different countries. Within the country, I know fishes that have 3 different common names in Chile. And those same 3 names are
One
used in other regions for different other fishes. So it's not just that you name one thing differently, right? So all those names are used for different things in different parts of the country. So in those areas like Guatemala and they will have that. So sometimes the species are not even lost, but they're just misreported because they're using common names that in one country means something and the other country means something else. And he was highlighting the importance of taxonomy in this case, like the work that Dave does and some others. That's something that became another issue. I don't know if you guys have seen that and you have the same situation in your countries, but in English it's pretty straightforward sometimes and at least with the biggest, right? So if we talk about the charismatic, I mean, white sharks are white sharks everywhere and whale sharks, but if you start talking about squaliforms, the little ones, the little black ones and brown ones, the deep sea sharks, even ghost sharks, right? We're not even talking about ghost sharks in here, which is also another issue and in different so many ways. I mean, to study them, to age them. I don't know, Lisa, do you have some experience with deep sea things to age, for example? Because we talked about this before, like a couple of months ago, not a couple, maybe a year or so. We talked about the deep sea shark that we were trying to age and they don't mark anything. I mean, even that is hard. So it's hard to identify, and then you cannot do anything because you don't have the same structures to give it a try to age it at least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they've really figured out how to age anything at this point. But specifically the deep sea sharks, they don't, even if you believe in band pairs, they don't have them to age or they're completely different. So it's very difficult. And then you've got to figure, everybody wants it. Well, what's causing them? What's the annual? Is it migration? Is it salinity? What's down there that's causing that? So you know me, I don't believe in vertebral bands, so I'm probably not a good person to ask right now about that.
And I need to talk to you later. She has something to say. She's dying about it. She's dying about it. May or may not have done a discovery. And if I tell you guys here, I will have to kill you also. And I will talk to you, Lisa, in a minute.
Anytime.
Hey, Pancho?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the situation you described about how the common names change. Well, in South Africa, I lived this before when I was doing my PhD, is that you would go from town to town or village to village, and they would have an English name, an Afrikaans name, and then a local tribal name. So you had potentially three names in three languages, and you go to a town like 100 kilometers away, and the same shark has three, it's the same one, but separate, has three different names. And so that's what prompted so I actually, because this was a real problem trying to figure out what was what, is that we did this field guide. Leonard and I put this, that was the whole reason we did that field guide, was to have some that people could identify them. So when you go to some place, you show them a picture, and then they'll point to it, and like, oh, because most people are gonna look at the pictures anyway. And I know it's definitely a bit of an effort to put something together. They're doing this right now, I can tell you, in the Western Indian Ocean. The Wildlife Conservation Society is working on this now, because they're having the same problems, and they're having multiple countries as well. And you got Portuguese and French and English and tribal. So, but if in some of these areas, like in Guatemala or some of these smaller countries, you could potentially have a field guide that you could show to the picture. And the key thing is to have some good illustrations to show the fishermen a picture, and then like, okay, this particular place is called that. So that was, I know it's a bit of a longer solution, but it is a solution that once we got that field guide, people just snap those things up everywhere, and even if they didn't speak English, they could still point to the picture. So I could figure out what it was. So that's something to consider in a lot of these areas. Is some kind of an identification guide.
Actually, I was going to add to what Dave was saying about the showing the picture, and I know you, Dave, use that as a strategy for your lost sharks. Usually these are like really old from museum collections, I know. But we, with the colleagues in Peru, we use this sort of a strategy to assess the loss of a species, or at least the local disappearance of some. This is not chondrichthyan, but this was for bony fishes. And we use this combination, of the local knowledge, the local ecological knowledge that fishermen that have accumulated over, 50, 60 years. And they used to fish in the same areas for like decades. And now they actually can point you the fishes that they were fishing at the beginning and the ones that disappear over time. And then how they change areas and how also the community of fishes change. So I think this combination, when you were asking about how to, what ways to assess the loss of a species, is like, first, of course, there's different ways, but one is to go to the people that has been, fishing them for years. And of course, they use different common names, but you can show them a picture and they will tell you, very accurate things that they used to be really common, and they were like the main catch, and that they're gone now. And so I think that will be, like a very, it's a very valuable and very powerful source of information for, looking into, let's say, local extinctions. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly what you just said. And of course, Jimena, you and I have talked a lot about this, and I experienced this last year when I was in Ecuador and Peru looking for this sharp fin hound shark. The older fishermen that were like in their, say over 50, 60 years old. We talked to a few guys who were in their 70s, these fishermen. They knew exactly what we're talking about. They described where they used to catch it, the habitat, the fishery they would catch them in. The younger guys, like under, say, 50, they had no idea. They had never seen it. And the older fishermen said like they caught them like 35, 40 years ago or more, but they haven't seen it for decades. And the younger guys, so when you talk to the fishermen, you got to talk to the older fishermen to get a sense of what's changed, because the younger guys, they have they were not, by the time they started fishing, they were not there. And so that's and the interesting thing we had too is that in both Ecuador and Peru, fishermen that don't know each other at all, the older guys would describe the same type of habitat and how they would catch them, and yet the younger guys had no idea what this thing was. So that's those are just some simple things, but it's almost like it's just gets into knowing the fishermen and building a relationship to speak with them in some of these different areas. And if I can make one more point, the sharks we're talking and rays we're talking about, these are not like the pelagic species or even the larger coastal. They're the smaller species that people don't like. A lot of the hound sharks and some of the cat sharks, angel sharks, some of the things that people don't think a lot, that they're not paying a lot of attention to. So those are the ones that are really like, in my thing, my lost sharks. Those are the ones that I think are really disappearing and nobody's really noticing that very, very much.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, Dave, too, about the older versus younger fishermen, because you get a shifting baseline. The younger guys never saw it when the sharks were abundant. And so they think that there's already recovered and there's way too many sharks and there's all this depredation and we got to start killing the sharks again. The older guys remember 50, 60 years ago when there were way more sharks than there are now, which is more the reality of what you want to call the virgin population. Not that we could ever really get back to that, but listening to the fishermen is key, especially the older ones who are starting to phase out. So they've got to be talked to now, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Eduardo, ¿estás con nosotros? ¿Me escuchas? Ya. Bueno.
Sí, me escucho. Perdón, la demora, que estaba en el bus, en la carretera, ahora estoy en el Uber y nada, en mi casa.
Ah, qué bueno. Bueno, pues en este Día Internacional de algo que nos gusta hacer a nosotros, a todos nosotros los que estamos aquí, los que nos están escuchando, es trabajar con condrictios y que tenemos la fortuna de tener la experiencia que nos están compartiendo la doctora Lisa Nathanson, el doctor Dave Ever, que llevan, pero por mucho más que nosotros, trabajando apasionadamente en esto y es maravilloso todos los que nos están compartiendo. Y a mí me gustaría mucho, Eduardo, que tú nos pudieras compartir desde tu experiencia en la educación, cómo se puede crear conciencia acerca del trabajo que hacemos nosotros en cada una de nuestras trincheras para la conservación de los condrictios.
Sí, mira, acá en Brasil es un poco más difícil, pues las personas acá no están acostumbradas sí, a estudiar, pero esta parte de tiburón no entiende que tiburón, acá se llama cazón son igual, pero el cazón se lo come. Y es un poco más difícil, ¿no? De enseñar, principalmente a los chiquitos, yo de clase a los grandes de grado y posgrado, entonces que empiezo en la clase diciendo que tiburón es un ser totalmente importante para la parte incluso de economía, ¿no? Por el buceo. Se puede bucear con tiburones, no puede tener miedo del tiburón. Y una vez estaba en el acuario São Paulo, en una ciudad que se llama Ubatuba, en un chiquito, un niño, no sé, unos 5 años, empezó ¿no? a darte un tapa en el vidrio del acuario del tiburón, la pecera del tiburón, y como loco, no, lo odio, tiburón, lo odio, me van a matar, no van a matar. Tiburón, yo te decía, el chiquito, no, no pasa nada, está bien, tiburón, no pasa nada. Y los alumnos igual, porque la primera conciencia que nosotros tenemos acá en Brasil es el cazón que se vende en la pesquería, se vende en el mercado acá en Brasil, se es igual al tiburón. Entonces la conciencia se va, no, pero cazón es riquísimo acá, porque no tiene espino, el hueso un poco chiquito, entonces puede comer bien y dan los niños. Pero digo, mira, está en extinción, le pasa también la parte de metal pesado, que tremenda acá en Brasil, está intentando entender, y de mi parte, yo enseño a los chicos, desde de los chicos pequeños igual, me voy a la clase con unas amigas que son profes de chicos y enseño a mis alumnos de grado y posgrado. Incluso hoy día Tiburón lo llevé a mis alumnos de posgrado a una playa que se llama Peruíbe. En Peruíbe, en indígena, se dice río Tiburón. Y no hay tiburón en el río allá. Lo pregunté a los pescadores, pregunté a todas las personas, los más viejos. No, no veo tiburón hace años acá. Porque río, por supuesto, como tiene un manglar, seguramente una parte de crianza, ¿no? Y nada de tiburón. Y entonces me voy intentando, enseñando a mis alumnos, despacito, con una parte, intentando traducir los artículos para ellos, dando clases, ponencias, de toda manera enseñando que sí, que el tiburón es bueno, que el tiburón es perfecto, que está bien, la parte de reproducción, le encanta cuando hablo de la parte de reproducción, que de parte de trabajo, pero dijo, no, mira, tiburón, porque doy clase, soy biólogo y doy clase igual a veterinario y los veterinarios están acostumbrados a esta parte de tiburón. No entienden la clase, la facultad. Entonces
Sí,
lo
yo
dijo,
creo,
no, mira, ya,
perdón. Sí, yo creo que la parte de la educación definitivamente es súper importante para la conservación y todos los medios que tenemos a nuestro alcance para poder darlo a conocer.
There's
sí,
no
sí,
way I translate everything, but
ya,
sorry about that. No, you told so much. Yeah, education basically. So Eduardo works in education. He's teaching and he's always talking about how he's working with kids and young people in universities. And he was just saying one of the things he said was there's this story with they saw a shark or something and people start freaking out, and which is a reaction. I don't know if you guys have it in your own countries, but I think at least in Chile it's not super like that anymore. I mean, with big sharks, yes, but if you see a small shark, I mean, nobody's scared anymore. The reaction that we used to have, our generation is because of the movie. I'm not naming it, and but you know what I'm talking about, and yeah, so it's the when you have these negative reactions to the presence of a shark, it's easy to understand, and that is also a problem of education. So we all in here are working on education and spread the word to people that sharks are good. We have red spotted cat sharks in here that grow like not more than 70 centimeters when that maximum total length, and we have babies in the labs, baby skates, baby sharks, and we are always showing those to people, and they love them, right? Kids, my own kids. I have a 4-year-old kid, and he grew up since he was a baby. Again, among them, he touched them, he grabs them. He's not scared at all of sharks or any other. So it's a thing that we have to change from our own places, and it's hard to do it in terms of the society sometimes because there is a there is a thought that is preset in our minds and in the society's mind that sharks, anything with teeth will be dangerous, and if it's big, it's dangerous too. It's really like that. But I mean, I'm enthusiastic even with that because I've seen many people how they see them now and how you can change their minds sometimes just talking about it. It's just education.
Pancho, if oh, do you want to go ahead, Anna? Do you want to translate first? Do you want to translate first?
What?
Uh, uh, I was just
I
going
was
to
speaking
add
in English, babe.
what? Oh, I
That is
thought
my
you were
English,
gonna
babe.
no, I thought you were gonna translate. I thought you were gonna translate to Spanish. I didn't want.
No.
Um,
I just said in English what Eduardo said in Spanish.
yeah.
Kind of.
Okay. Oh, kind of. Well, the only I was going to add in, and I know, like I saw observed this in South Africa, and then even in California, is that people that are around the ocean all the time, they don't have any fear of sharks. They just look at it as part of their sharks are in the water, and even though they're there, it's the people that come from inland that are not around the ocean all the time. They're the ones that have more because it's just something unknown to them going in the water that there's a big fish there. So it's definitely, so I think you need to like look at the group you're talking to, and that the local people, in my experience, are very used to sharks. They're always around the ocean. They just assume if they're going to go surfing or diving or swimming, they could see a shark. It's not very common, but they might. But people that say come for a holiday, those are the people that really have a concern or more concern because it's just something new to them. It's something unusual to them. That's that's I've seen in South Africa and just here in California. And at least is it like that at the East Coast too? Is it people that are around the ocean all the time?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
yes and no. I mean, at this point, I would say yes. When I first started at the lab and, we were going to tournaments, Casey did a lot of education. When he first started tournaments in the early 60s, it was the only good shark is a dead shark, and people would clap when a big shark came up and this and that. And I think Pancho can attest to the fact that now, well, most of them are over, but towards the end of that, people would boo people who brought sharks up, especially if it wasn't a qualifier. So the feeling about sharks and as them as a iconic animal that doesn't need to be killed just to be killed definitely changed. And of course, all that was coastal, all the recreational fishermen, and a lot of the stuff we did at the tournaments educated people. I had people come up to me and say they wouldn't fish tournaments anymore because they heard me talk about how big a mako has to be to reproduce, things like that, and they would be too tempted to kill it if they were in the tournament, whereas they wouldn't if they weren't. So we did have an impact doing that and going out into the public. I think starting with kids, you educate them and they understand, and then they're more supportive, and then that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Jimena about them then becoming an important species to conserve because people understand them.
Si tenemos gente en el público que quiera hacer alguna pregunta, la puede escribir y nosotros la podemos compartir con nuestros panelistas. Y Natalie, working with Priestis and Priestis. Natalie, ¿nos quieres comentar algo acerca de tu experiencia? Está silenciada.
Perdón. Sí, quería compartir mi experiencia en esta parte de crear conciencia, que es algo en el que pues, he estado trabajando estos últimos años. Yo creo que la forma en que podemos crear conciencia es atacar los diferentes frentes y aprovechar estas oportunidades cuando pues, vamos a campo, explicarle al pescador lo que está pasando de manera simple, interactuar con ellos. Y ellos realmente, yo he visto que han creado cosas, el explicarle qué está pasando, porque es bueno, ¿qué hacen, no? Y explicarle todo lo que hacemos, por qué lo hacemos y para qué lo hacemos, ha ayudado mucho y a que ellos entiendan, incluso a que nos colaboren, ¿no? A crear a poder crear información información acerca de estos tiburones, igual mucho con la educación, ¿no? E información, atacar todo con información de manera sencilla. A veces nos cuesta mucho como investigadores hablar de manera sencilla, pero sí, luego podemos encontrar la manera de encontrar foros, como museos, escuelas, en el que uno pueda llegar, sobre todo a los niños, como comentaba Eduardo, ¿no? Que como un niño estaba atacando que él odiaba al tiburón, ¿no? Entonces, se puede crear una conciencia, explicarle a los chicos qué es muchas cosas, luego he dado charlas a veces, pero qué es lo que debemos conocer de los tiburones, que es importante saber y atacar incluso desde el punto de vista eso que usan mucho en las películas, eso que daña, entonces explicar que eso no es así y explicarle cómo realmente son los procesos. Yo creo que la mejor forma de crear conciencia es conocer y mucha gente no conoce y lo que pasa es que se dejan llevar por lo que ven en la televisión y pues llevarlos a información con los mismos trabajos que creamos como científico, pues digerirlo y es algo que lo que estamos como trabajando en otros proyectos con otras personas, en hacer digerible toda esa información que nosotros como investigadores producimos y que se da a conocer, ¿no? Entonces yo creo que es como muy importante esta parte, es una forma que yo he visto en realidad de que ha funcionado de cómo crear conciencia en proyectos, ahorita actualmente la foto que está en la presentación que pusieron es de aquí ahorita en el Museo de Historia Natural de acá de la Ciudad de México en Chapultepec. Hay una exposición justamente para eso, es una exposición de tiburones donde hay cuestiones de información de manera digerible, incluso hay juegos para que los niños interactúen y aprendan también esta sistemática de protección y que involucra también el cuidado de los tiburones, el por qué son importantes ecológicamente en la pesquería, que sí lo podemos comer, no podemos satanizar tampoco, ¿no? Pero sí, ese trabajo en conjunto con los pescadores, con las comunidades, también con la parte del sector de gubernamental que también se involucra en esta parte y pues la sociedad en general.
Yo creo que haciendo una visión de años atrás a actual, nuestro gremio ha crecido mucho. Antes solamente estaba Eugene Clark y después fueron integrándose muchas mujeres en el trabajo continuo con Chondrichthyan, ¿no? Entonces, hay muchas líneas de investigación en las que contribuimos, demasiadas líneas de investigación en las que se contribuye a la conservación de nuestras especies, pero sí, definitivamente la parte de la educación, como mencionas, es súper importante. ¿Quieres decir algo?
Yeah, so Natalie was talking about education and how important it's not just to educate the society, not only kids, but also fishermen again. So we come back to that idea of educating them. I mean, you know what I mean when I say educate them, right? So they may have a lot of education, they know more of fishes than we do, but sometimes the way we have to talk to them or to explain them why are we doing what we do, right? That is something when biologists don't speak clearly, that brings also problem. It's so hard for some people to just go and speak easy, like you want, and Andrew, this is also your topic, right? So if you want to talk to somebody that is not a scientist, don't speak like a goddamn scientist, right? I almost say, don't speak like that. You want your message to get to the point. Don't laugh at me. And you said it before, and then so you need your message to get there to reach your public, and the only way to do it is to talk in a language that will be understood, right? So that's the whole point of communication, is to communicate with people.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it's really, you have to know who your audience is, right? If it's a fishing community, you have to connect with them, as a fishing community. You have to know fishing. You have to speak almost their language, not just the language of the country they're in, but the language they speak, for fishing. It's the same thing, if you're on a podcast and you're talking about a lot of science things, you're not going to talk a lot about the jargon that we use as scientists, because people don't understand it and they get lost, and they don't want to hear that. They want to just hear the message that they're used to hearing. And I think a lot of times, we're starting to learn that now as scientists and conservationists. I feel, and in a lot of places, I think, I see it, just with Dave's trip to Ecuador and Peru last year. You could see, Joanna, going to the fishing villages and being able to speak to them and just connecting with them on a individual basis, and joking around with them, and having fun with them, and not just coming in and asking what you need, is building that relationship. It's a bit of like a sales call kind of thing. You got to build that relationship as you go along, and if you want to get something from them, you have to provide value to them. You got to answer questions that they may have, or listen to what they have. As you mentioned, Pancho, that they know more than us about that area. They know the fish, they know the sharks that they've been catching, and what they've been seeing, especially those who have been fishing for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
Y bueno, finalmente queremos que todos participen en comentarnos, porque hay muchas personas jóvenes que nos están viendo, que se están formando, que son amantes de los condrictios. ¿Cuál es el mensaje que podemos dar para estas nuevas generaciones? Así que cualquiera que quiera alzar su mano, ¿tú le puedes traducir?
She said, I'm so into it sometimes that I forget I have to translate it later. So Anna is asking, so to finish and close this, if you guys have any message for the people in the audience, young people, old people, everyone, that is listening and join us in this moment. So what is the message you would like to leave for them? Any message, whatever, doesn't matter. Hopefully about convictions, right? But whatever you want to say, this is the moment. Remember is alive, Lisa. Okay. I don't know who Anna has in the position. I will start by my squares I can see. So Lisa, you're first. Don't say that word.
I'm not saying any bad words. I just say, you know, understanding sharks is really important, but trying to put them all in one bucket, it's not going to work. So hopefully we can all figure out ways to understand them individually as well as in a group and make sure that they stay on the planet.
Oh, thank you.
That's it.
I have feed them, Lisa, feed them. Andrew, you're next.
Since I'm someone who loves media and communication is start to seek out the people who are studying these sharks. Having the Beyond, being able to do the Beyond Jaws podcast with Dave and interviewing many of you, I've learned a lot from each and every one of you in terms of the studies, in terms of how your careers have developed. And I think that's the interesting part, is hearing from, the shark scientists, hearing from the conservationists and the work that they do in all different parts of the world. We don't get to hear from a lot of people in South America and in Central America and North America, and we hear from the same people each and every year in different programs and shows, which is fine. But after a while, we need to see the diversity of the sharks being studied and the people studying them. And I think that's where we're going to start to get people to really understand the challenges that we face in terms of conserving sharks, but also the wins that we've had in conserving and discovering sharks in different places.
Thank you. Now my personal friend Jimena.
Well, I will say go to the field. I mean, it will be nice if people that really want to work with sharks at some point, they just go and see them alive. I worked most of my career with either with tissue samples in the lab or with dead sharks at the port. But before that, before working with sharks, I saw a few when I was working with sea turtles, and I developed a taste and a really a care and respect for sharks. Of course, I was afraid in the water, but I think seeing them in the field, if you can tag along Dave, and he will take you to the market and make you test about taxonomy, and then you're gonna fail horribly. Well, anyway, but you're gonna start learning about sharks. But definitely, you need to, if you can, just go and see them. You have to see them.
No. He's the only taxonomist here. That's a problem. Salvador.
No es cierto. It's not true.
Gracias. Creo que continuando con lo que dijo Jimena, vayan al campo, ensúciense, toquen el tiburón, conozcan al tiburón, ya sea muerto o vivo, todo es una buena experiencia. Mis primeras interacciones con el tiburón fue en la pesca artesanal. Sigo trabajando con la pesca artesanal y eso me ha dado los conocimientos que ahora sé para poder dar un manejo adecuado al recurso. No es simplemente, no es tal vez solo tocar el corazón del tiburón, en protegerlo, sino que también existen otras actividades humanas que dependen del tiburón y que no tienen la alternativa para poder hacer un cambio tan rápido, tan drástico de ser pescadores de tiburón a hacer otra cosa. Entonces, tener eso en mente para lo que viene a futuro es importante, o sea, que estén en la mezcla de ambos mundos, la conservación y el manejo.
Gracias. I'm not translating that. Natalie.
Gracias. Pues mi cosa es que estar y intervenir en todos los procesos de un estudio, ¿no? Desde el campo hasta la publicación, ¿no? En el campo se aprende muchísimo, es un centro de conocimiento bárbaro por la interacción que tienes con la gente, y pues siempre nosotros tenemos como la labor de estar investigando y de crear opciones, ¿no? Vamos a encontrar las dificultades que hay para hacer trabajos, y eso mismo nos ayuda a crear herramientas para hacer trabajos. Este mundo de los tiburones pues todavía tiene mucho que hacer, de las rayas mucho más. Entonces yo invito a a ampliar la mente y ver las diferentes oportunidades que hay para trabajar con estos organismos y pensar siempre en que no todo está dicho, en que hay muchas cosas que podemos seguir evaluando, que podemos seguir explotando. Acá estamos implementando otras estrategias, por ejemplo, para identificar los tiburones cuando no tenemos ni siquiera medio tiburón, ¿no? Entonces, es eso, ¿no? A reinventarnos, a basando en lo que tenemos y seguirnos apoyando también nosotros como comunidades de investigadores y hacer colaboraciones con los que comienza y con los que ya estamos en el camino y con los que ya son todos unos maestros como los que tenemos aquí.
Gracias. ¿Esas mandíbulas de atrás son de Pristis?
No.
No, tenemos no, o sea, es un
Are those mandibles
instrumento
of
musical
Pristis?
colombiano, que soy colombiana,
Ok.
pero
Dave,
tenemos varias mandíbulas de tiburones aquí que porque también estudiamos
Hammerhead,
la parte de las mandíbulas,
Toe
los tiburones.
Sharks.
Tenemos una colección.
Good. Dave, you're up.
Okay, well, I want to say my proudest achievement is having brought Pancho from the ecology side over to the dark side and taxonomies. He'll be my crowning achievement at the end of my career to see pass along the taxonomy torch to such a fine
Uh-huh.
young man in Pancho. And so I just want to say thank you, Pancho, for
You couldn't resist.
carrying the torch.
You're paying
And
for it.
and beyond that, kind of add what Andrew said in that the podcast we've been doing, the Beyond Jaws, and several of you have been on there. It's like we've really tried to reach out to people in all kinds of countries. Where we've had people on from about 40 countries, many from Latin America, and I think it's been a great way to help people network. And I think for young people listening, they get a sense of like, no matter what country you're from or where you are, a lot of your same journey you've taken and to where you are, it's very similar, no matter where you are, whether you're in Africa or South America or North America. And so we've really tried to reach out to people and to hopefully network and to allow other people around the world to hear everyone's journey. And I think the last count we have downloads in about 145 countries now. So, Jimena and Pancho and Lisa, you guys are like world famous now. And hopefully we'll have some more of you on the on the podcast in the future. So anyway, if you haven't done so, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. It'd be really good because now we're doing the videos. So that means we'll have to have Lisa back on since she was on before we did videos. So anyway, that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Dave. Manuel, ¿algún mensaje quieras darle a la audiencia?
Claro que sí, Pancho. Bueno, como dicen todos los compañeros, todavía hay mucho, mucho por hacer. El trabajo por tiburones, siempre uno cree que hizo y faltan muchas cosas, muchos parámetros, mucha información. Y en mensajes a veces hacia los pescadores, eh, decirles que el tema de la extinción son cosas reales, ¿verdad? Que están pasando en nuestra generación. Estamos viendo extirpadas poblaciones de nuestras aguas constantemente, ¿verdad? Eh, Precisamente durante mi periodo de vida, pues ya ha estado extirpado el tiburón sierra en las costas del Pacífico y en las costas del Caribe. Eh, no, definitivamente ahí sí no tenemos esperanzas al menos en el Pacífico, de volverlo a ver, en el Caribe posiblemente. Creo que llevar mensajes como estos de que la extinción sí es real, que está pasando a nuestros ojos, que tenemos que actuar prontamente para crear algún refugio, alguna zona de recuperación de estas especies, es necesario. Y creo que ese tema les está llamando mucho la atención a los investigadores, a las organizaciones y a algunos grupos de pescadores. Definitivamente no es lo que más les va a traer, pero creo que es una estrategia de manejo a mediano plazo, no es a largo plazo, es a mediano plazo, para que pueda servir también para actividades turísticas para las personas, ¿verdad? Para poder observar, así que por última vez o los últimos organismos de estas especies en su hábitat natural.
Gracias, Manuel. Eduardo. No, Eduardo, your silence.
Hola,
There you go.
hola.
Final message for people.
Yo sigo enseñando a los alumnos, principalmente en lo que no son de biología, a los niños igual, porque los de biología están mal acostumbrados, ¿no? Estudian y quieren salvar el ambiente, los animales. Los de veterinaria igual tiene lo uno, el otro que le gusta más, como las ballenas, los osos, los chicos, los animales más guapos, ¿no? Los tiburones son un poco feos para ellos, ¿no? Los perros, los gatos. Entonces, sigo enseñando que son importantes, de que tienen que cuidar. Y sigo igual con los pescadores, ¿no? Porque trabajo en directo también con ellos y los enseño. Enseño la parte de reproducción, la parte de conservación y la parte de todo, ¿no? De la pesca, que se pesca demasiado, nos vas a tener más tiburones, no va a tener más otros peces. Entonces, sigo de esta manera estudiando un poco más y enseñando a los chiquitos y los grandes, ¿no? De grado por grado, igual. Y gracias, Pancho y Anita.
Gracias, Edith. Thanks.
Y yo también voy a dar mi opinión, ¿puedo?
She's saying,
Bueno, a todos la audiencia que nos están viendo, y este video se va a grabar y seguramente lo van a poder repetir muchas veces. No es fácil proteger a una especie porque se necesita la sinergia de muchas personas, se necesita mucho tiempo para juntar genética, taxonomía, parámetros demográficos, la pesquería, conocer la biología de una sola especie. Entonces, cuando se preguntan por qué no se protegen todas las especies, es porque cuesta muchos años poder conocer una sola especie, ¿no? Entonces, en esos años, muchas especies se vuelven resilientes a todos los factores que cambian su ambiente, sus hábitats. Y bueno, todos los que estamos aquí estamos haciendo nuestro trabajo, contribuyendo a la conservación y sobre todo a concientizar a toda la población en que los tiburones son seres, no solo los tiburones, las quimeras, las rayas, son seres extraordinarios que necesitan seguir permaneciendo en nuestros océanos.
thank you.
Sí, tal vez.
God damn it. Yeah, no, it's a final reflection about how important it is to preserve and conserve, especially everything and not only lasmobranchs but also chimeras. So all the disciplines we are putting together in this meeting here, it's pretty awesome, and we all have to work in our own disciplines and work together for making this better, right? So we are all needed in this moment. I think Jimena wants to say something else. No? Okay.
I was just saying that there's a question on the YouTube chat.
Okay.
Just telling you that.
Okay, so oh, look at that. So I have a question here. How do you guys think that anomalies such as thermic anomalies like how you spell this in English? ENSO, right? So El Niño, Southern Oscillation. So how do you think that affects the distribution rate in chondrichthyan?
Bueno, yo puedo comentar que empleé uno de los estudios que hice en Ecuador, durante varios años, estuve estudiando el tiburón efierna cegana, estoy viendo la alimentación y cuando pude ver un cambio en la alimentación de estos tiburones. Al principio no sabíamos bien qué era y nos dimos cuenta que fue por esto, por el ENSO, por el efecto del niño, que cambió la alimentación de estos organismos y algunos organismos también, ciertas tallas comenzaron a moverse. Entonces, es una de las aportaciones que puedo dar. Y aparte de alimentación, también como migraciones y cambios con algunas zonas de, mm, de tanto de crianza y como de apareamiento.
Thank you, Natalie. That is great. I think we have another very interesting question that It would be great to know now. So, for example, what is the first species in which you work of sharks, right? I would say myself, when I was an undergrad, my first species I worked with was Mustelus mentus atriagidae and also Scabitus chilensis. So how about you guys? What was your first shark in work? Lisa,
Do you remember?
she does. She does. She remembers everything.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Okay, all
Yeah, for you, Dave. The angel shark was my first and will probably always be my favorite, but I also
Which
love
one?
poor beagle sharks. So my favorite is what I'm working on at the time, I think, but angel sharks stay the primary.
Oh, interesting. How about you guys? Who else wants to go?
The
Dave,
first?
your first.
Seven gill for me.
That is not your first.
That was,
Is it?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
It
seven gill.
was.
Yeah, Lisa
You weren't
Lisa
even
can
born
tell
then,
you.
Yeah, I know. You met in those days, right?
Pancho.
You were trying to steal his vertebrae while he was trying to save it, probably.
Yeah.
I can see that. And some other girl trying to steal the bugs from the guts, right? So Notorrincos, I love that shark, by the way. Love it.
Mhm.
Jimena,
Well, it was a data mining project. I haven't, I didn't work with a single species. I did a phylogeny for a class in grad school that ended up being the first chapter of my PhD. And it was a phylogeny for all the sharks. Well, that what I tried.
But Jimena,
Yes.
a friend of yours, actually brought you blue shark, I remember. When you were still working only with tissues, that was the first time you came across with one of those, a mako or a blue shark or something. Remember? In Argentina?
Oh no, but that was yeah, I was already way down into my thesis by that
Yeah.
time. Yes. Yeah, you were.
Yeah, that wasn't
Yes,
a tissue,
when I
right?
No, I was working with blues. Yeah, no. But my first work was a data mining project with sharks. That's when I actually got to know them, and I learned the scientific names and the phylogeny before I was able to even recognize a shark from a picture. I had no idea about sharks, just the names and the phylogeny. That's it.
No, that's good. Salvador, tu primer tiburón? Your first shark?
Yeah, was a silky shark. Was amazing when I
Silky?
see that. The
Falciformis.
silky shark. Yeah, Falciformis. It's amazing. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I see the Cacrinus leucas, the bull shark.
Bull
Was
shark.
was amazing because it was big one, 4 meters total length. So was wow. In one artisanal vessels, the one panga, one small one. That's amazing.
Kind of boats. It's like a
8 people to hold the old shark to bring out the shark.
That's pretty cool.
a big shark.
Yeah, a big one. How
Natalia,
about the I still have the
8
picture.
people for one
Yeah.
shark.
Yeah.
Wow.
Natalie, ¿cuál es tu primer tiburón? El que viste por primera vez para trabajar.
Bueno, fueron varios. Fue el tiburón.
Pristis.
Ese fue el último, fue como de
Simple,
los.
right?
Me ha ganado mi corazón porque, pues, haber visto, conocer un Pristis en vivo,
Obviously.
que se cree extinto, es como increíble, ¿no? Y afortunadamente muchos lo pueden ver ahorita en el acuario de Veracruz.
Ah, ok.
Es como que más, wow. Pero sí, yo inicialmente pues con los tiburones martillos y el tiburón piloto, también el falciformis. Y fueron
Very
las
common
que
name,
llevo.
right? Piloto,
Yeah.
¿cómo le dijiste tú?
Silky.
Silky.
Yeah.
Sedoso también le llaman.
Sedoso, yeah.
Silky sedoso.
Sí.
Sí, gracias. Manuel, tu primer encuentro.
Falciformes.
Falciformes.
Acá le decimos gris.
Gris, yeah.
There were a lot both back in the days.
Hablando de nombres comunes.
A third name for the same shark.
También algunos le confunden y le dicen blanco. Nada que ver, pero le dicen blanco también acá.
Es más blanco que el blanco.
No, incluso también en El Salvador le dicen azul.
También.
Azul.
Azul también. Sí, falciforme, está mal hecho.
En
Eduardo,
Pancho, what's yours?
Eduardo.
Sí,
¿Cuál
mi,
es tu primer tiburón por trabajo? ¿Con cuál fue el primero que trabajaste?
el tiburón azul. Trabajé
Tiburón azul.
tiburón azul, sí, en mi maestría. Increíble
Precioso.
tiburón. Y lo vi a primera vez en un barco de palangre.
Mm.
Subiendo el barco de palangre. Increíble.
That's great. My first shark?
Mm.
I said, but as a work, Mustelus mental. So that was my undergrad dissertation. But I would say the first time I dreamed with a shark, it was Chlamydia salacus.
It's your favorite teacher.
That's my favorite shark, definitely. And I dreamed with it when I was an undergrad somehow. I don't know why, but I had a dream with that. So last question, I will just, and the last, just to close, yeah, what makes you realize that you actually wanted to work with convictions when you were in your early days in the career? Anyone? How did you realize you wanted to work with sharks? Is something that you came before? I mean, I kind of always knew that I wanted to work with sharks, and I ended up working more with skates, but actually skates are pretty cool.
Skates are just flat sharks, Pancho.
I know.
Puedes abrirla.
The pancakes.
I have to say, I'll answer the question. Before I say that, I have to say I'm surprised with you and Jimena because I described the new skate species with both of you, and neither of you mentioned the skates
Yeah.
as one of your favorite sharks. Your favorite sharks.
I think skates are much more interesting than sharks now. Now that I worked a lot in them, right? So all I did for my dissertation, which is something
Well, I was going to say that every time we have we're near to having like a good phylogeny for sharks, Dave comes in and describes a new species and mess everything up. So
yeah, shame on you, Dave.
with the skates.
Yeah.
You bad Dave.
You're helping mess things up now too. So
Yeah,
with your new
totally.
skate.
Yeah,
No.
we can talk another day about angel sharks, Jimena.
Yeah. Your lost angel sharks.
Yeah, that's about word for me now.
Your
Okay, thank you
your
very much for
microphone.
you
your
guys.
mic-
I think Anna will say the last words, of course, but I just wanted to
your
thank
microphone's off.
my microphone. Yeah. But
Nobody
I
can
know
hear
you
you.
can hear me, Dave. I know you can hear me.
Está silenciado.
No, but I
Come on, we already know you're
I'm
part
saying
of
it,
each
right?
other.
I'm thanking you guys. And even when Dave doesn't hurt me, he's lying. He's totally lying again. And so thank you very much for being here and joining. I really enjoyed this. I think, well, we'll figure out later how we polish this and in terms of making sure that the thing goes right to the people. And Anna will say a last words in English, in Spanish. Sorry.
Entonces esperamos que todos los que nos estén viendo hayan disfrutado mucho y sobre todo que, bueno, vean, la intención también era que pudieran identificar a diferentes investigadores que están en diferentes partes del mundo haciendo diferentes cosas para que también puedan atreverse a escribirles, ¿no?
Yeah, let's do this again. Sometime soon. I like it. Okay, I will close the transmission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank
Gusto
you. Thank you
verles.
Bye.
very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry, doctor. I don't know how to stop this transmission. Okay.
Yeah, me too. See you.
Okay. Bye.
See you.
Nice to see
Bye.
you. Nice to see you there.
Good seeing
Bye.
everybody. Yeah, good seeing you,
See you.
Jimena. All right. Bye-bye.